Hello there, everybody. Welcome to another Pastor's Chat with Coley and Tonks. It is awesome to be here to share with you again this
Great
week.
for another week, and it's starting to warm up. Spring coming around.
Yeah,
it's great, isn't it?
Got the t-shirt on today.
That is. We're getting close. Nearly the end of August, nearly
Yes.
spring. So that means...
Well, unfortunately, here we are into August, but we're still in COVID-19 coronavirus restrictions.
We were talking about, towards the end of March, we were heading into a lockdown, and now we're in another
Back
lockdown.
in
And
a second one.
it's crazy.
I thought we'd be back having church by now.
Yeah, even when we decided to stop being at church, that I was going to be for a few months. But
Yeah, couple of weeks.
It's crazy now. Like, who knows? Christmas, we may, probably won't even be here together.
So we are frustrated. It's difficult, challenging. But today I actually want to share a little bit because if we really stop and think about it, this whole COVID-19 thing has taught us some valuable lessons.
We'd probably learn some of the biggest lessons of our life in some ways. Hopefully we look at this back as a 1 in 100-year event, as they say, and being alive for it. Hopefully we learn something.
To share today some of the things that we've learned about perhaps church, about personal stuff, about family. So things that we have learned during this COVID-19 period of time.
That's right.
So, Coley, you want to kick us off? What's something you've learned?
Something I've learned is our lives are full of a lot of junk. And there's just a lot of stuff that if you'd told me before the lockdown, I wouldn't have thought that I could live without, that I needed to have my life full of busyness. I need to have a life full of meetings. I needed to have a life full of going to social events. I need to have a life full of hanging out at the footy club, and all those things I still really miss. But it makes me realise just how many things I say yes to, how many things I do in the week. And when you finally get that chance to stop, there are times of lockdown I thought, this is good. Don't have to go anywhere. I'm not obliged to do anything.
Help remove the clutter
from life. It just makes you really think about what's important, and makes you really think, well, does the world fall down if I don't go and be involved in this thing this week? Or is the whole world going to collapse around me when you take out a few of these things that I think are the most important things in my week? And you just realise how much clearer your mind can be in a lot of ways too. I've found just having extended time to go for a run or for a walk or hang out with Elise or read my Bible, or so many different things, and you've just got so much more clarity of mind, I suppose.
Well, mine probably first thing is very connected to that, is it's reminded me of what truly matters most in life. And for me, the context has very much been about family.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Xbox then.
Well, there's been plenty of Xbox, but no, family, being cut off from my family in Ballarat. My brother was meant to come up next week for a week's holiday with us, and can't do that. I haven't seen my mum since March. Some of the people in our church at the moment, they've got family in New South Wales, in Adelaide. They haven't seen their children or their grandchildren pretty much since about March. It's been a long time being cut off from immediate family, and that hurts. That hurts a lot. It's a lot more serious about not being able to go to my favourite cafe or my favourite restaurant, or even as much as we've got friends that we love, even it's not as bad as missing out on a few friends. The whole thing of family, and so there's many people in the church are aware. Every Wednesday we have our family night. Back to now not being able to have that again, and that hurts a bit. So I've got to sneak out to Mecca and order a takeaway coffee just so I can see Ethan from afar. I go, hey son, how you going out there? But
that's what happens. I know. Mate, Elise wanted to go see her grandparents who are in their 80s, and she wanted to they only live 2 hours away in South Australia. And she wanted to make sure we saw them a bit more often this year, as they're in their 80s, and we can't see them at all. We don't even know when we'll be allowed to cross that border. So we really got to make the most of the time we have with those loved ones, and how important family is.
What's something else you've learned during COVID-19?
So my main one is just, for my second point, is be kind. It is so easy to be kind, and you just see so many people not being kind during COVID. I think it could be because of frustration and all of that stuff, but just the harshness people have, whether they're being rude about having to wear a mask, whether they're being rude about not being allowed out, whether they're venting on Facebook. I feel like social media is so much more toxic during COVID. I've stopped using Facebook most of the week because of it, because it's just so much whinging and complaining and harshness towards others. And it doesn't cost much to be kind. And I think it's something we always have known, but I've just seen the importance of it during COVID, because I think people not being kind is what's tearing people down and really hurting people more. Like, you see how much harshness in words are going on at politicians. You see how harsh people are being to so many people. If someone's not following a rule, or like, I forgot to wear a mask the other day just into the shop, and I was a bit embarrassed by it. But the things we're thinking of people that are just walking down the street without a mask, and people being nasty about that in their head, it might just be thoughts you're getting. And we fall into the trap ourselves. I see someone without a mask the other day. I was like, what are they doing? But we need to not fall in that trap of not being kind.
Well, my next one that I've learnt, again, quite connected to that one, is that, I've been reminded that as Christian people, we've got a duty to love. We are called by our Saviour to love one another, to love our brothers and sisters, even to love our enemy. And it's been a great reminder of that. Something that's made me angry during this period of time, and this is very much, it's happening in Australia, it's happening a lot in America, but these Christians, these churches that are all about their freedoms. This is we've got to close the church down. It's an intrusion on our freedoms, separation of church and state. And some churches are even making the decision, and some leading Christian voices, which has been quite unsettling, about saying that we need to stand up to the government. We need to reopen our churches in defiance of these shutdowns and things like that. And it's all about this Christian freedoms and our rights as churches. And I read through the Bible, and I think to myself, Jesus never spoke about our rights, but rather he spoke about our duties, our responsibilities as followers of him, to love one another. And instead of complaining, we've already mentioned this a couple of times as a church, but instead of seeing the masks as it's restricting my freedoms, rather we can reframe that to go, no, this is an opportunity for me to display love, particularly love for the vulnerable, our elderly. We've got a lot of precious elderly people in our church. Now, what if we just defied all the rules? We went and knocked on their door, went and visited them, no masks, no social distancing and all that, and next thing we find out that we have passed on the coronavirus to some of those beautiful elderly, vulnerable people in our church.
I couldn't live with myself, would you? No, it's terrible. So I think if you just look at Acts, like you read the book of Acts and you see how they've got it. They're getting stoned, they're getting all sorts of stuff. Stoned as in stones being thrown at them for our young viewers. But they'll put on islands in exile, all sorts of stuff. And we think we've got it rough.
They're under the harshest of persecutions.
That's right.
And yet they continue to love. And that's what Jesus says about love. We're meant to love even when it's hard. Think about Sermon on the Mount. If someone slaps us on the left cheek, we're not to be, where's my Christian freedoms? But no, we've got to turn and let them slap it on the next cheek. If they take our tunic, it's not about, hey, where's my Christian freedoms? It's giving you a cloak as well. If they force you to go 1 mile, it's like, where's my Christian?
Go two.
It's even in the harsh, difficult, challenging times, we've got to continue to love.
That's it. Well, my third point is that we are made for community. I think we're in a world that was set up very well for technology and for Zoom calls and for Skype and all that sort of stuff. And it does help a lot. It really helps us connect. It's got a lot of benefits. But I've just learned how much that we are built for community, how much Jesus built that into us to need to be around other people. We are made for community, because I didn't realise how much that after all these Zoom calls, and then when we went back to face for a couple months, just how great that is, and how over time you just really yearn for being around people. It says in the Bible, it says man was not meant to be alone, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have a husband or a wife, but it does mean that we need to be amongst other people. It means it's part of our nature to be in community, and it's just healthy to be around other people, really healthy. So we need to look for ways to do that, and we need to not take that for granted. I've learned so much about just how it is in our nature.
So use Zoom, use FaceTime, use those technologies to help us, do the things we do. But
that's it.
It's not the answer.
It's not.
It's the person, people to people.
I'm looking forward to when Zoom can be a good alternative option when you can't meet one night because it's cold and wet, or who knows what the reason is. But instead of we have to do this as the only way to meet.
For sure. Another thing that I've been reminded, and something I've really learned through this time, is just that reminding that we are the church. We don't go to church.
Very much.
So church isn't this building on the corner of 10th Street and Deakin Avenue. Church isn't that 9 o'clock, 10:30, 5 o'clock service that we run normally on a weekly thing. Church isn't the online service that goes live at 9 o'clock every Sunday morning, but we are the church.
That's right. Your faith would have been over as soon as coronavirus started, if that was the case, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If your faith was in a building or in the church.
Yep. You know, there's been a bit of a saying that I've seen posted a little bit on social media, which I like. It was along the lines of, you know, the church has not closed down, or those restrictions has not closed the church, but rather it's helped us to open churches in every single home across Sunraysia, across Australia, across the world, really, and because of our online things. So our church is, for me, it's on a Sunday, it's me, my wife, my daughter, sitting together. We're the church. Whether you're in your home, with your family, whether it be online, whether it be through phone calls, whether it be through in the home itself, we are the church. So it's a great reminder that it's not a program or an event or a place we go to, but it's, you know, reminding that what Jesus said, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there in their midst. The tangible presence of Christ coming in.
That's right.
As the church.
A few years ago, quite a few years ago now, but Jetson Franklin, we were at a conference and he preached this whole message around the church has left the building. And I need to go back and watch that, but it was about that whole idea that the church isn't the building, but the church leaves this building and goes into the community and preaches Jesus.
Yeah, or maybe hopefully one of the things that remains with us from COVID is that understanding that we are the church.
That's right.
That the church isn't that program, it isn't that place, but at work, at school, in the neighbourhood, with our family, we are the church.
And that's a great link into my last point, is that we can preach the gospel anywhere. Doesn't matter where we are, so we can be the church anywhere. And when you have a look at Paul, and you look at when he was writing these letters, he was actually in a lockdown himself. He was under house arrest in Rome.
Worse than this lockdown.
Yeah, it was far worse. We think we got it pretty rough when we can still go and get a coffee. Well, Paul, a lot of people believe he was actually beheaded at the end of this lockdown. All he could really do was write letters. But you see, Paul was actually converting prison guards at certain times, and he was writing these letters that we still have today. They make up half of our New Testament. So he was preaching the gospel. He didn't see that as a chance to just complain and get bitter about everything in life. But he's like, nothing is going to stop me from preaching the gospel. And you never know with the sort of things we're making up today, with things like the videos that we're producing. I don't think they'll hang around for 2,000 years like Paul's letters. But we've got a huge power to still preach the gospel no matter what. You can do it through your social media. You could do it with a letter like Paul. You could write letters to people. You could do it through a phone call. You could do it through so many different ways. But don't think that this is a chance we have to have a holiday from preaching the gospel.
That's right.
This shows that it's more important than ever, and that nothing can stop us from preaching the gospel. It says in the Bible, in all things, we need to preach Christ crucified. We need to tell people that Jesus died for them. Maybe they're more open to it during COVID. I don't know. But we can't let that stop us.
That's right. Absolutely. And the final thing I want to share is a great reminder that nothing, absolutely nothing, can separate us from the love of God.
That's it.
No restrictions, no diseases, no pandemics can ever separate us from the love of God. You know, we have that passage that we love in Romans chapter 8, and it goes through a number of things around, you know, that neither life nor death, nor angels or demons or powers or principalities, you know, there is nothing in heaven, under heaven, on the earth can ever separate us from the love of God. And I thought we could almost contextualize that verse to put it into almost a COVID-19 thing to say, you know, like, what shall we say to this? Can anything separate us from the love of God? You know, no government restrictions, no pandemics, no diseases, no illnesses, no stay at home, no curfews, nothing can separate us from the love of God. So no matter where we are, whether we're at home alone, whether we're at home with family, whether we've got restrictions to do with whether we can travel, whether we've got curfews, you know, we can understand that, you know, God's still there, God is still in control, and his love for us is still absolutely real.
That's it. That's it. So thanks for joining us for another Pastor's Chat. And what have you learned? Tell us something about what you've learned about this current COVID time.
It's been great to hear some
It'd be
of
great
those
to
things.
hear it. So have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. See you later, everybody.